Second.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Romando?
Aye.
Ms. Correa?
Aye.
Mr. Burrell?
Aye.
Mr. Cattrick?
Aye. Next, we have our ordinances on second reading. So we have some folks that are not necessarily season ticket holders here tonight. So I'm going to try to explain what's going on. I have an inkling because I am on Facebook of why everybody's here. So we're going to have a series of ordinances. Those on second reading have a public hearing. So those public hearings are for that ordinance and that ordinance only. We will have an opportunity for everybody to ask questions if it's about that specific ordinance. For those folks that came here for the COAH meeting for Chester Avenue, which is what I think I saw on Facebook late this afternoon, we had that meeting July 22nd, 2019. It's available online on video. There's a presentation that is the PowerPoint presentation that's printed here in front of me. You're welcome to grab one of these if you want, or we'll have someone pass them out if you'd like. There's only about 20 copies. We didn't know you all would be here, but we'll be happy to do that. What we'll do though is go through this, and rather than spend another 3 hours doing what we did at that last meeting, I guess it was maybe 2.5 hours. We will, after we get through all the paperwork and the housekeeping that we have to do for these ordinances, one of which is about the overall COAH plan, then what we'll do is if you'd like, I can give kind of a brief synopsis of the meeting, and that'll be kind of an overview. It was very in-depth. We had the big screen and the PowerPoint and all that for that meeting. So I don't know who said this was the meeting for the Chester Avenue COAH. It was not designed to be that, so we don't have the screen and we don't really have the presentation to go through. But I'll be happy, we'll all be happy to go over and answer as many questions as we can. But we would ask that we get through this. Again, for these public hearings on readings on second ordinance, you're welcome to come up. If you have a question about that particular ordinance, we'll be happy to address them. Again, for those folks who are new here, you're speaking to the council. As council president, I ask you to direct your comments directly to me. And the microphones are for recording purposes, not for amplification. So I'd ask you to use your outdoor voice, because the people behind you will yell at you and say, "I can't hear you." So they'll do that. I'm going to predict that. I guarantee it happens every meeting. Secondly, this is not a case where it's willy-nilly. People are not to shout out from the crowd. What we'll do is we'll give everybody who wants a chance to speak. The only thing I ask is that you not repeat what was just said by the person prior to you. So we'll move on from there as we go through this, and this will be interactive. Everyone who wants to speak will have an opportunity to speak, and here we go. And
Council
yes.
President, if I just may interject, formally you are entitled to defer to the public to the extent you see it appropriate to run the agenda that way, but only the ordinances that are on for second reading tonight are formally reserved the session for public comment.
Right, gotcha. That is our township solicitor. That Alan represents that's the township attorney. So he keeps me on the straight and narrow in these meetings so that we do it right. So the first ordinance on second reading is ordinance 2019-12. This is an ordinance of the Township of Delran amending Chapter 389 entitled Animals and Poultry of the Code of the Township of Delran. So I would ask for a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so if anyone has a question about this ordinance and this ordinance only, this is the ordinance, frankly, that took our chicken program from a pilot to a permanent fixture. We offered 20 licenses in the past, and 6 people went through the rigors of owning chickens in town, and we've subsequently made that a permanent thing, and we've made the licenses unlimited because it's a whole lot of work and a whole lot of money, and not a lot of people do that. Anybody have any questions about this ordinance and this ordinance only? Seeing no hands, I'll ask for a motion to come out of public.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now I need a motion to approve ordinance 2019-12.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Romando?
Aye.
Ms. Correa? Aye. Mr. Burrell?
Aye.
Mr. Cattrick?
Aye. So next we have ordinance 2019-13. This is an ordinance of the Township of Delran, County of Burlington, the State of New Jersey, repealing Article 2 entitled Registration of Residential Rental Units of Chapter 269 entitled Rental Property of the Code of the Township of Delran. I have a motion to go into public.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So this ordinance repeals some things that were in the code that were from years and years ago that we were not enforcing with requiring inspections and various things that we just weren't doing, and it's best, at the advice of our attorney, to take anything that we're not enforcing directly off the books. It was not something that we deemed necessary, so that was taken off. If anybody has a question about this ordinance and this ordinance only, please wave your hand, or, yes, sir, come up. You have to come up, state your name and address for the record, and use your outdoor voice.
Sure, no problem. Ron Ciceretti, 31 Moreland Drive. Just a quick question. The title of the ordinance says third round of housing plan. How many rounds are there?
We're in 13,
Okay.
2019-13.
All right,
We'll get back to that. Sorry about that, Ron. But you'll be first
All right.
when we do the next one. Seeing no hands, I'll ask for a motion to come out of public.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and now I need a motion to approve ordinance 2019-13.
Second.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Romando?
Aye.
Ms. Correa? Aye. Mr. Burrell?
Aye.
Mr. Metzger?
Aye. So next is ordinance 2019-14. This is an ordinance of the Township of Delran to implement the township's third-round housing plan element and fair share plan consistent with the terms of a settlement agreement reached between the Township of Delran and the Fair Share Housing Center regarding compliance with the township's third-round affordable housing obligations in accordance with in RE NJAC of 5:96 and 5:97, 221 NJ1 2015, the New Jersey Fair Housing Act, and the relevant regulations and policies adopted by the New Jersey Council on Affordable Housing. That being said, I need a motion to go into public.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So now, do we have questions from the public?
Sure.
Come on up and let's repeat the same thing again for the record.
Sure. I apologize.
No worries.
Just a quick question. I'm reading in the title of the ordinance. It says the third round of housing. My question is, how many rounds are there? And were those rounds mandated by the state or the county, or were they chosen by us?
No. So, yes, good question. So this is the third round. The first round was in 1986. The second round was in 2008. I'm sorry, 2003. And we were satisfied. Third round was scheduled to be in 2008. It was revised, but then it was challenged in court. And then it was deemed unconstitutional. In 2015, COAH was divested, and the affordable housing issue was taken over by the court system. So all of this is mandated by the courts. Since this is obviously of interest, we had done what we were supposed to do, and that was in 2015, all towns had to file a declaratory judgment action in Superior Court to approve their revised plan. We did that in July of 2015, and we were assigned a special master, a gentleman named Philip Caton. And in 2017, as that case was in court still, we had 3 interveners join the court. So interveners are somebody that say, hey, I can help Delran fill their obligation, whether they like it or not. And that was a Fair Share Housing Center, and Chester Avenue was one of the developers, and Atlantic Delta was one of the others. This is all spelled out both in the video of that meeting from July 22nd and in the PowerPoint. We have it printed here, but it's available on screen. Fair Share Housing, you should be aware, are the people that are involved all over the state, and they basically file lawsuits in every town to force towns to build additional affordable housing. Their website indicates their mission statement and also indicates that the founder is a developer of affordable housing. So from our perspective, the intervener brings that to the table. They were the people that were the folks that built and started the whole Mount Laurel agreements, and that was what resulted in the building of Summer Hill and the Grand.
Yeah, I'm familiar with these regulations. I was a councilman in Riverton for 10 years before moving to Delran a few years ago. But circling back to my original question, how many rounds are there?
This is the third, right, this is the third, and this is the one that is currently in place. Our attorney can help us.
To essentially encapsulate what has been a very thorough answer, to sum it all up, it's essentially the third round, and there is no limit as to how many rounds we go, in the sense that this is, when Council President mentioned that the courts mandate this, by courts he means the state constitution of New Jersey, and hence it's a state requirement. So long as the law in New Jersey is that every town is required to use zoning powers to provide affordable housing to all residents, there will be continuous rounds moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I appreciate you detailing.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions about this? Sir, please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, my name is Louis Coriel, 7 Martian Drive in Delran. I have gone through all the agenda and the minutes of the council for the entire year, and I have seen no mention of a first reading for ordinance 2019-14.
That was the last couple. Right. So that was done in the July 9th public meeting, which those minutes were just approved about 20 minutes ago, and they'll be posted up tomorrow on the website. That was the first reading of that ordinance.
And I also saw the same thing for 2019-15 and -17.
Say that again.
It's still on the, it's not in the minutes portion because we didn't approve the minutes, but it is mentioned on the agenda.
Right.
I can assure you that, I promise. I don't promise a lot.
Right. Okay, so on this,
July
so
9th?
a lot of the July 9th ordinances were delivered to us that day or the day before, so they were added to the agenda. So if there's not a revised agenda, we can, I'd like to propose
The
the
agenda
revised.
copy that I have does not have any of these 3 ordinances on it.
So they were, and there is video online that you can see that they were given first reading. This is the second reading that has the public hearing. So it was done that we're added on. You know, very often ordinances are walked on because they are timely and need to be done. We're
I just wanted to make sure that
I'll
all
tell you
the
what, I just
legalities
did-
were being,
I just asked Jamie, tomorrow morning, if you want, she can give you a copy if you come into the building, and she can give you a copy that'll have one.
I
She does
appreciate
have
that.
that.
Any other questions about this ordinance and this ordinance only? Seeing no hands, I'll ask for a motion to come out of the public.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now I'd like a motion to approve ordinance 2019-14.
Second.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Romando?
Aye.
Ms. Correa? Aye. Mr. Burrell?
Aye.
Mr. Kenny?
Aye. Next is ordinance 2019-15. This is an ordinance establishing the inclusionary development 1, ID-1, with the district in block 46 and portions of lot 2 and 3. And this would be for a public hearing. Ask for a motion to go into public.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So now this ordinance establishes the development that is on the Catholic Diocese property of Holy Cross with a maximum of 265 units with a minimum of 20% being affordable and low to moderate households, and provides for various design standards for the development of the site. Again, this was trying to be as brief since we've gone through this all before, but you're all new to all this. When this development was brought up by the interveners called the Chester Avenue Development Group, they asked for 400 units to be placed there with the set aside of affordable housing, and we were able to negotiate it down to 265, which was a 34% reduction for them. This will be 212 market value units, which are regular priced homes, and 53 affordable units. All of these units are rental units in those properties. It was because many of the questions were asked, so I'm trying to anticipate some of your questions tonight. We certainly did make mention to the special counsel that the special master that was there as an intermediary and a mediator for this group, as all these folks were coming at us trying to build all these homes. Besides the fact that no one wanted homes on Chester Avenue, I reminded them easily 6 or 8 times that we have a fire department, a police department, emergency squad, 2 schools, the municipal court, and all the municipal services, all within a quarter mile of this location. Didn't seem to bother them at all. These are all things that are mandated. Now with the agreement, we did insist that they have an on and off on Route 130 in addition to this exit across the street. My guess is, having been on Chester Avenue dropping my daughters off to middle school, that if they're trying to get out of their home in the morning to go to work and it takes them 15 minutes to get out of their driveway, that they'll likely go to Route 130. That's just because it will take a lot less time to get out there. But that was what this ordinance was about, and this part of the negotiation and where it was. There's big picture stuff on the website. If you need to see the total package, we can talk about that once we get to the public portion. If anyone would like more detail, we'll try to do that for you. I apologize that we don't have the slides here to show you. We do have the PowerPoints available. Everything's available online. So if we have any questions about this ordinance, this is 2019-15, which is for what's called the Chester Avenue developers. Feel free to come up, state your name and address once recognized, and have a question. Yes, sir.
Just a few questions. Thank you.
This is Ron again?
Yeah,
correct?
Ron Cicerone, 31 Moreland Drive. And again, I apologize, I'm new to the town, so some of this may have happened before, and just let me know if this has already been vetted. Just a couple quick questions about the property in question, which is owned by the diocese.
Right.
And again, I'm new to the town, so how was that property originally obtained by the diocese? Was it deeded? Was it purchased?
That was many years ago. Jeff, you have any? Jeff is our...
And the reason I ask this question is I just want to make sure it's been vetted, that maybe there are some covenants or restrictions on the deed when it was transferred, that it can't be sold for a profit, since it was, that property has been paid 0 property taxes for over 50 years. So if they were to sell it now, that's pretty much a slap in the face of the town, which has granted them 0 property tax for a very long time. The second question I have, has the Holy Cross property been sold yet?
No, I don't believe there's actually been a transaction yet.
Okay. Other question I had, I made a few bullet points here. What percentage of the larger of the 2 lots is being sold? Do we have a master plan?
We do have the book. Do we have the acreage? So it is the area that is right along Chester Avenue, excluding the individual homes that are already there.
Sure.
Do we have the actual acreage?
Here's the picture of it.
Okay.
So
Yep,
this,
I found that picture online, and now
It's the smaller lot.
Yes.
It's a 22-acre lot.
Yep.
22
And
acres.
I'm just going to circle back to this. I received this memorandum via certified mail, and it is addressed to me and my wife, and it says, read, notice property owners within 200 feet of block 46, lots 2 and 3. As a courtesy to property owners, I bet you 90% of the people in this town can't even tell you their own block and lot number. So giving this to people, it's like hieroglyphics. They have no idea what everyone is talking about. I think it would be in the town's best interest if they included one more page of that with a map to say, hey, this is what we're talking about, so that people know and maybe can get upset or say, hey, I can see what you're doing there.
Right.
Just a, little.
So I'm gonna have our attorney.
Required by
I
statute.
know it's required, but
Let me answer your question. To the extent that the public is interested, there is a free county website, and enter the block and lot number, it spits out an address for you, and seeing can be used to look up anything on Google Images in today's day and age. Just trying to set the record straight to the extent you may be implying that the governing body is not being transparent.
not at all. Not at all. I'm not implying or inferring that. I'm just saying that would help some of the residents, perhaps older, who don't have access to the internet, so on and so forth, that when they receive that, they know exactly what pieces of property are being referred to. Just a little courtesy to the average homeowner. Another question, what are the lots currently zoned as? I think this-
Again, this was
And sir, just to follow up on my question, was that notice that you received in the mail, was that mailed from the township
Yes.
or the property owner?
Township.
Township.
Yeah. Now, I have a copy here if you'd like to see it. It's from Jamie Eggers, and I'm sure it follows protocol and boilerplate, it lists everything that it has to. I'm just saying as a courtesy, and I'm not implying or inferring that anybody is trying to hide something. I'm just saying that it would make it a lot easier for the average constituent, the average taxpayer, to say, hey, I know exactly what they're talking about here. Because I did find it online, I did a pretty good Google search, but where I wound up finding it actually was on our township engineer's website under a subdirectory called Delran Doc. So it did take a long time to find.
Did you consider reaching out to the township to obtain information?
I did call once, and it was probably lunchtime, but I did get an answer. I didn't reply.
Just for the greater public, the
Absolutely.
township can always provide this information. If you're not sure where a certain address falls by way of reference to the block and lot number, that information is always at our disposal.
And I'll just leave you with one thing. I have one more question. I'm sure this has been covered before I moved into town, or I was not at the meeting. But the vote on change of use, is that a zoning or a planning board issue, or is that being handled?
That's actually neither. That's the court. When the courts make these decisions, they supersede our zoning. Again, I have to refer to the
Sure.
attorney, but that's what happens. That, again, the same thing happened with, I want to say, with Summerhill and the Grand.
Can you repeat your question, sir, please? I didn't get that.
Yeah.
My question was, if there is a zoning change or change of use, who is going to vote on that? Is it the zoning or the planning board? But it was
The governing body.
Yes. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Was it deeded?
You have to come up and speak. We can't shout for the crowd. You have to come up and state your name and address for the record. Anyone else have a question? I see two gentlemen. Lady? This gentleman, are you just getting?
Yes.
Anyone has, sir, do you have a question, or are you just getting a copy?
Question.
Okay, and then you'll be next then. Thank you.
Charles Aller, 160 Mulberry Street. Was it Don?
Ron?
Ron? Can you, is it possible for him to repeat his question?
Sure. You have to address council, please.
Okay.
We're not doing that.
Well, I'm asking, can he repeat
Sure,
his
you
question
can
about
repeat
the
your-
transfer of deed pertaining to the Holy Cross property?
He didn't ask about transfer of deed, he talked about changing of zone.
Changing of zoning?
Right, so
I
what
believe
happened?
there was a question about the profitability and the lack of taxes paid on the Holy Cross
Yeah,
property.
so
Is that
I'd
correct?
have to ask the attorney if there's any precedent for that, or if we have, it was 50 years or more.
What is the question?
Question was, in essence, is there anything that prohibits them from selling that land because of the fact that they were a nonprofit and didn't pay taxes on it?
I understand. The township is not going to be buying this property. This property is going to be bought potentially by a third-party developer. So whenever somebody purchases property, it's up to that party to conduct the adequate due diligence, order a title report, which goes back to a minimum of at least 65 to 90 years. And at that point in time, every time the property's changed interest and somebody's been leaned through a reporting of the county, that will be revealed at that point. The township is not directly involved in this transaction. We are simply providing the zoning to facilitate our affordable housing component. That's a transaction between either the school and the third-party developer.
Okay, so then I guess my question for you is, what is that property currently zoned?
Property currently zoned.
Again, as when these court decisions are made, they supersede any of the zoning that's in place.
I understand that, that's not my question. My question is, what is the property
It's
currently zoned?
currently zoned to office.
Currently zoned office.
Correct.
And why is there a tax implication that they are not paying taxes? What causes that? What's the effect?
The
Why?
zoning and the taxing are different things. The taxing is because they're Catholic school, private, right, because it's the church.
They were
owned by the-
nonprofit.
So they're a
the
nonprofit
Diocese of
organization.
Trent.
So I guess my question, in addition to Ron's, is if that gets rezoned and it is sold for profit, is there any type of tax implication that they'll be liable for?
Well, it would be that portion only, I would assume, but that's again, a legal question that I'm gonna have to ask the attorney, because these are all
Are we
good
talking
questions.
about moving forward or retroactively?
Retroactively.
No.
So, and moving forward, there would be.
There would be
So
taxes,
this-
it
so-
would either be taxed at a regular rate or a payment in lieu of taxes program pursuant to a redevelopment.
So even though this property's been nonprofit for 65 years or whatever it was, they can sell it for a profit and they're not liable to pay any back taxes, even though they sold it for a profit. When it was zoned, or they weren't paying any taxes, it was nonprofit organization. Is that correct?
I haven't investigated it further, but if it's zoned as for different use and it's implemented for a different use. For example, if a building stops being implemented as a church and it becomes a regular residence or another type of use, it's taxed moving forward. So it's not retroactive, my understanding, without further inquiry.
Okay. I guess that doesn't really satisfy because we're not getting a straight answer. But
Well, the answer is that in the past, it was owned by the nonprofit that was tax exempt. And what the past is past, and when it sells, I don't know the implications on the sales tax. This is a private transaction between the Diocese of Trenton and the potential developers. Those folks have a real estate transaction. My guess is, and I don't know that there's sales tax charged or a real estate tax. Going forward, that land will be taxed as any other land will be taxed.
so as it sits right now, even though it's zoned or considered or taxed as a nonprofit organization, if they sell for profit, they don't have to pay any back taxes.
Not back taxes, no. It's suddenly changed to a taxable, help me make sure I'm
Sir, to the
saying.
extent you're asking about real estate taxes versus income taxes or money earned on that property, that's a better question reserved in terms of what the state's interest is. The township is only concerned with real estate taxes before currently and moving after.
And that's what I'm asking, solely asking about real estate tax.
Then
And I guess I'm just
I've answered that
comparing it
question as
to,
thoroughly as I can.
So once it changes hands, it becomes a taxable parcel of land, and we would start collecting taxes. Up until that point, it was not, it was a tax exempt organization.
so going forward, if the zoning changes, then it will be.
Doesn't have anything to do with the
tax
zoning,
exempt.
has to do with who owns it.
And now it transacts, it will no longer be tax exempt.
Correct. So all those folks will pay all that tax.
Thank you.
Other questions for this ordinance? Yes, ma'am. Have this young lady first, sir?
I'm first.
Oh, you
I'm
just
quick.
get- Well, she was first.
There you go.
That's
No, it's quick. Tom Davis, 1003 Oak Avenue.
Hi, Tom.
I would just, to be honest with you, just ask mayor, council, whoever's going to vote on this tonight, just to hopefully delay it 1 month. Because as of July 9th, I don't know how many of you.
Tom,
raised your-
please address council.
Oh, okay.
No, come right here.
I want them to
Come-
hear.
They'll hear it, you'll speak
I don't
loud.
hear, I'm not.
We
How
need,
many
Tom, we
people-
need that to record you. Thank you.
How many people in the audience saw the video? I think we're having a hard time in the audience because some of us, the ones who should have been served 200-foot notice, weren't served prior to July 9th. So none of us, I have no concept of what they're doing. I didn't see the video, I haven't seen the map, so I really can't ask a question. I understand the attorney with the zoning change, etc. But I have no concept. I mean, I'll go home, I'll watch the video now, But I think that people in the audience, and maybe I'm wrong, are struggling because we didn't sit, we weren't here July 9th, and maybe that's our fault, but we were told to be here tonight. with the-
I don't,
No, we got the 200-foot notice.
that's it, come here tonight.
Well, no, it said that the ordinance was on.
On, right, but we weren't here for the first,
So
we didn't get, and Jamie, maybe you can tell us that. Should we have been noticed for the first reading?
I was advised from the township attorney to send it after the first reading.
After the first. Okay, well, and that's why I think a lot of us are
So,
struggling.
and the meeting,
Now I'm struggling.
the video was recorded July 22nd. So it was,
And again, my fault for not watching it, but I didn't know, I thought this was gonna be a meeting. And I'm sorry, we'll let that young lady.
Sir, just to explain specifically why notice is provided in anticipation of the second meeting, because whether it's a zoning ordinance or a chicken ordinance or any other ordinance that's adopted by the town, second reading is when public comment is provided.
Then again, my fault, so we should be here tonight, but I'm struggling because I didn't get to see the video, and there's no more handouts, so I'm just struggling to see what's going on.
right. And again, they hand out the PowerPoint. Ma'am, you can come up. The PowerPoint is available online. You can download it.
I'll be on.
Watch it, print it.
Are you sure?
Unless somebody intervenes.
Good evening. My name is Sheila Garcia. I live at 5 Cherry Wells Court in Delran, New Jersey. And I was under the perception that the 235,
For this 265.
65, that 161 of them were going to be built at Stellwag's property. 65 were being built where the old foundry was, and the remaining was going to be built on the Chester Avenue lot.
No, that's
Now,
not correct.
this is what I had heard, and I was trying to find out if this was true.
So Facebook is not a good place to get any information. So here's the way it is. There are 265 units in this location. There will be 240 at what is called the Atlantic Delta development. That is the big property next to Home Depot along the highway. There will be, on the old Stellwag property, will be, this is 111 units, 20 of which will be affordable. They will all be age restricted. And then there will be, the plan is for 65 units to be built on the former abrasive alloy site, which is behind the Bridgeboro Fire Company.
And out of each one of these things, only 20% has to be affordable housing? and the
All
rest-
except the abrasive alloy is 100% affordable.
Okay, and has all the other things, like, as you all know, I was the director of the sewage authority, has all this been taken into consideration? I back up to the Fifth Street pump station. I am concerned about all this extra
Sewage. Well,
into our sewage system.
Yes,
I mean,
so-
like, you know, this is going to be, if you had to build another pump station, this is going to be very costly for the township.
right, so this is, again, let me take a half step back. Certainly that has been brought to the attention of all the different departments and the engineers, and they have not said that we could not handle the capacity. And so that everyone understands, this is not anything that anyone up here asked for. This was the result of, we filed to protect the town. These organizations intervened. There's a constitutionally mandated obligation to provide affordable housing. And these interveners, and if it sounds negative to you, it does to me as well, but these interveners come in and want to help us to build all these things. Now, they at a 20% set aside, which is normal, that means that what we're sued for, what the interveners joined this suit to do, was they requested 827 additional COAH units. So at a 20% set aside, that would have been 4,135 homes in Delran. Now, we currently have about 6,000 homes. That would have been 4,100 more. Lord knows where, but that's what the suit was trying to do. We settled on 365 affordable units, but because we have a great planner in our planning engineer, we were able to take that down through using additional credits and through adjusting our prior rounds to, it was 186 affordable units and 495 market. So what potentially it could have been was 4,100, and we got that down to 681. So while no one asked for 681 units to be built, this council, mayor and this council have been trying to restrict as much residential as possible, and when we did residential, we wanted age restricted because they have no impact on the schools, and that's where we were with Timber Ridge, which is building in the old Willowbrook, the Delran part of the old Willowbrook Country Club, and the Stellwag property. These were all age restricted. No one under 18 allowed to live there, so it would have no impact on the schools.
And Chester Avenue as well, or no?
Chester Avenue is not.
Not.
That's
And my other, maybe a misunderstanding was that they are going to build a 3-story unit on Chester Avenue? 3-story unit?
No.
Like, the township building's only 1 story, and I'm thinking,
The zoning actually doesn't permit up to
because the zoning allows up to 335.
I mean, that's going to be really unsightly from down Chester. I mean, like I said,
No
this
question.
building's only 1 story. And if, you know, I'm not totally opposed to housing over there. That's fine, single-family homes, however they do it. I am opposed to a 3-story
Right, these would
apartment
be,
building.
they would be townhomes or apartment rental, you know, condos, that kind of thing. Again, they wanted 400, and we were able to get them at 265. That was something that was palatable for the special master, who was there at the appointment of the court to oversee the negotiations, and it was, frankly, me and about 6 lawyers, a couple of engineers, and the interveners, along with the special masters. And they came in ready to go, and we did everything we could to kind of cut them back. So that's where we were, and that's how the numbers went from 827 to actually building 186 affordable units.
All right,
Thank you, Sheila. We have 2 gentlemen standing. We'll go in all right, reverse row order. Come on up. You have the brighter shirt. It doesn't really matter.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to know if we are going to have any tax implications due to the fact that you're now going to have more value to the land. Is that going to cause us to have, and of course there's going to be expenses due to schooling and whatnot. By the way, my name is Hugo Gaspar. I'm 76
Your
Stewart
address,
Ave.
I'm sorry, 76?
76 Stewart Ave.
Stewart Ave.
Yes, sir.
So, that's a good question. That is one that at the COAH meeting we discussed, that we don't have a definite answer because we don't know exactly what they're going to charge for these homes, what the taxes generated for those homes are, and what implications it will have. You know, we don't know who's moving in there, so we don't know how many kids will be in the schools, so what impact it will have on the schools. The school is aware, the school has been updated on what's going on, so they can make an attempt to plan that. Again, the reason that this council has been kind of resisting and fighting as best we could for any residential building, other than the potential, you know, when people came to us for residential building, we always kind of leaned toward age restricted because of the impact of the school. This coming on as it came on, and now that it's a court settlement, we don't have control of that yet because we don't know who's going to be here. We don't know what the prices are going to be at the end of the day. Therefore, we don't know what the value of the homes are going to be at the end of the day. We don't know what taxes they will generate. You know, what Stellwag will generate will help the school. That'll be a bonus to the school. What the other 2 developments will be a hindrance to the school.
And I guess the second part would be, is it all Delran or is it specific, location specific that would have, if there is an increase, would it be all of Delran or would it be just a specific location due to the proximity of?
So I'm going to assume that you mean the question is, if there was a tax increase, would it
Yes.
just be for them? Well, they're going to be increased because right now they're just land. So they will be, now there will be additional revenue in the tax base. If there is a rate increase, it increases as a rate, and that does impact everyone, but we don't know what the cost of them will be, nor do we know what the revenue generated by them, which will be all the new homes. So it's impossible for us at this point to predict that. Right now, we had to settle this lawsuit because, the possibilities were to not settle, to fight them in court, spend lots of money with Alan and the gentleman that he works for, and we could win or we could lose. There are cases that in the state where Tyler was giving me some information earlier, where there was a town that put in, said, we don't want any parts of this. And there was a judge that said, all right, you're out. And then she retired 2 weeks later. So my guess is when it's appealed, that the town's going to get their stuff handed to them. So you don't know. This was always handled by the Council on Affordable Housing. When that was defunded and then disbanded, and the courts took over. If you've ever been to court, I'm not an attorney, there's a couple of them up here, but if you've ever been to court, you know that whatever the judge says and hits the hammer, that's what happens, regardless of what the zoning is, regardless of what anybody wants, other than what the judge thinks is fair, and then it's over, and then you're done. There's an appeal, and every time you do that, we're spending township money. Okay?
Lastly,
Sure.
would this be the last hearing on this issue, or will it be?
So,
Sir, can you explain what you mean by this issue?
In terms of the ordinance that
This particular ordinance for
Yes.
this site? Yes, this will be the last hearing on.
this will be last,
Just
so you guys would decide today as to where.
I don't decide anything.
Understood, yes.
Exactly.
The council would decide
Right.
as to where.
and the answer, the further implication is that you have to understand that we did the declaratory judge action. It was intervened. The courts said, okay, now you have to settle this with these folks, and these folks are demanding this much. We negotiated the settlement. If we don't follow through, when's our hearing? The next hearing is in September
I
sometime?
believe it's early September is the next compliance hearing where we have to report back to the court whether pursuant to the settlement agreement approved by the Superior Court, have we taken these steps towards completing that settlement agreement? One of these steps being this zoning change for these certain sites that have been identified.
So what's important about that is if we don't, then we lose the immunity that we will, I hate to use this word, but that we will enjoy because we are no longer in compliance with the agreement. That means all of our protections are now gone. And correct me if I'm wrong, any developer that wants to do anything in these properties can sue to do what they want, and we lose all of our builders' remedies lawsuits. That's what we were trying, what every town had to attempt to do, because when that happens, they just come in and demand everything, and it's up to the courts. If anyone lives in Summer Hill and some of the condo areas where there's not enough parking, the streets are kind of narrow, that's all decided by the courts. There was nothing that anybody planned. None of us were on the council or the mayor at that time. But the court says, all right, well, let's put that many in. And that's what it is. So that's what we were trying to fight. The interveners came in and said, well, wait, we're going to help you do this. So that's where we are.
Thank you very much.
Sorry for the long-winded answer.
No
but
problem.
I'm trying to condense what we did in the last meeting to try to answer your question. Yes, sir.
Michael Massel, 21 Ridgewood Avenue. Who's going to pay for the new sewage plant that has to be built? Last year, the sewage plant was functioning at 100% of capacity. You're going to add 300 and some houses. What are you going to do? And who's going to pay for it? I see nothing in here that says you're going to force the builders or the developers to pay for it.
So, well, we don't know that we have to build a new plant.
Well, you're going to have to expand the current plant.
Mr. President, Jeff, you can.
The engineer has looked at the settlement agreements and has indicated the sewer plant can handle
capacity of these changes.
When did he come up with this?
When we presented him the information.
Last year it was at 100%.
Hasn't been.
I think, if I can clarify this further, the sewer plant right now, there's certain, I don't know the terms, I'm not an engineer, our engineer's not here, but there's certain tanks, right? Some of the tanks are off, so the ones that are on are running at 100%.
Yes.
You want to run a plant at 100% for energy efficient. So what happens when these new homes come in, we're then going to fire up different equipment that's still there, and we will then be at.
That hasn't functioned for years.
But it all works, we've had meetings about this. So what it is, artificially, we're creating it to be at 100% for energy efficiency.
So you're making a decision based on somebody's decision that it's okay. And when it turns out not to be okay, are you going to sue the developers, or are you going to overtax us?
So we're making a decision based on what the engineers are telling us. These are professional engineers that have, I know that you were on the sewage authority years ago, and when you made decisions for the sewage authority, you weren't a sewage expert, but there were engineers and superintendents that were.
We trust it.
Right,
Yes.
and we have to trust them that they're telling us that it's able to handle this additional capacity.
And if it can't, what are you going to do?
And if it can't, then we'll have to, the toilets have to flush.
No kidding.
We will look into that. We can't deal with hypothetical, we have assurances from them that it can handle the capacity, and we have to move forward from there.
Unbelievable.
Anyone else who has a question about this, we're not even through the ordinances yet. Anybody have any questions about this ordinance and this ordinance only? Yes, sir.
My name is John Lucci, BUCCI. I live at 22 Greenwood Avenue, Delran, New Jersey. My question is this: we're talking about building homes on Route 130, and that is commercial property. Am I right or wrong?
Yes.
Are you changing the ordinance?
Perhaps this would be better advised for general public comment, or when the ordinance pertaining to Route 130 is introduced, seeing as we're still on the topic of the Chester Ave property.
So let's just hang on to your question till we get to that. That'll be the next ordinance that we talk about. So the zoning, we have to stick with the ordinance, but we can do that. We'll answer that. We'll answer the question when we get to it. Preemptively.
That's important because, in other words, that property, instead of being some commercial property, it's going to be residential.
Right.
Which will change the tax structure, what you receive in the township.
So we're gonna address that topic in several short moments as soon as we wrap up the discussion on this ordinance. We'll come back to that topic and have another chance to come up and speak.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, hang on, why don't you sit right there in that chair right?
Yeah, well, we're going to answer the question that he asked anyway, so. Anyone else for this ordinance and this ordinance only? See no hands, I'll ask. No, oh, we have some, okay.
My name's Gary Tina, I live in 1006 Oak Avenue, Darien. My concern is, I back right up to Holy Cross Field. If the project's going on within 200 feet, how far back is lot 2 and 3? Like Tom said, this is the first time I heard about it. I talked to Jamie, I did, certified letter. You said something about actually going out to 130. That store that's there now used to be the old two-guy store, and then it's Holy Cross property where they park the buses. How far back does this property
Right,
go?
so it encompasses the scrubby area that's right along Chester Avenue, and it goes back approximately
To the football stand?
to just before the
The old
football
practice
field.
field?
They bought the old practice field.
Sir,
Is there an exit that goes south?
if I may point to whoever has the agenda and the actual ordinance in their possession, section 355-114 spells out all the area and bulk standards. It spells out in feet every setback requirement for parking, for the buildings, building heights, etc. Everything's addressed there.
That means right now there's nothing because I didn't see it. To me, give me a picture.
Right.
Where is the exit going to go onto 130?
So it will be basically the idea is that the back corner of the property will be routed to the parking lot, and there's, a roadway adjacent to the parking lot to get them out to the highway.
That's a professional center that's here? How about the Holy
Behind-
Cross exit?
It's all gonna be on Holy Cross property.
Council President, may I also advise that an actual development application has not yet been submitted?
Right, that's
That will
true.
be reviewed by the planning board. You'll have architecturals, pictures, a site plan. That's something reserved for the planning board, because we don't know what the
Right,
applicant
right.
is
So-
actually going to submit.
so-
I just don't want the Council President to say something that isn't necessarily true, because we don't have a crystal ball.
Right, so that was all discussed in the negotiations. These are the ordinances that set that up. There has been, other than for the Stellwag property, there have been no plans presented to the planning board for any of that. This is the agreement for all of this, but, the land hasn't been sold to them. The developers have not developed a plan for them yet. It hasn't been presented to anyone yet. So, we have no crystal ball. What we're trying to do now is protect what immunity we have from other people coming in and building other properties.
But as a public service announcement, the notice tonight was provided for everybody within 265 feet of the property, correct? 200? I'm sorry. So the same notice will be provided if and when any application comes through for the planning board. They will provide notice again, 200 feet for any property.
The lot's got to go pretty far back. My fence goes right to where practice soccer fields are now. And from there to the football field's got to be 1,000 feet. So I'm concerned that there's going to be stuff put right back there in the practice field.
No, it's not gonna hit
that far back.
And, thank you.
Anyone else for this ordinance and this ordinance only? Seeing no hands, I'll ask for a motion to come out of public.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now I need a motion to approve ordinance 2019-15.
So moved.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Romando?
Aye.
Mr. Correa? Aye. Mr. Burrell?
Aye.
Mr. Petrichor?
Aye. Next is ordinance 2019-16. This is an ordinance establishing the inclusionary development 2, ID-number 2, district in block 65, lot 18-01. And it is for second reading, so we have a public hearing on that as well. I ask for motion to go into public.
Motion. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And now we have any questions regarding,
I believe the gentleman in the baseball.
yeah,
was
right.
asking.
So, Mr. Bucci, your question, I forget your question, I'm sorry. There's a lot going on. Oh, yeah.
My question was, talk about the next two,
Home Depot. Right,
that's commercial property.
right, it is
How is that
right.
going to be affected? Are you going to change the zoning?
Right, so this will all come about with the agreement that the zoning will be changed to include these residential units. This was part of the agreement, it was the land that was the interveners brought to us and said, we're going to build on this land, and that became part of the sewer. The settlement included that intervener.
Is that property also including property on Fairview Street? With Willie Ort's property?
No. No, that property is,
That was owned by Lidl, and I don't know where that is.
yeah, that is not involved in this agreement.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have any other questions regarding what is referred to as the Atlantic Delta? It's the property next to the Home Depot. Seeing no hands, I'll ask for a motion to come out of public.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We're back in our meeting, and I need a motion to approve ordinance 2019-16.
Mr. Lyon?
Aye.
Mr. Romando?
Aye.
Ms. Correa? Aye. Mr. Burrell?
Aye.
Mr. Petrichor?
Aye. So next we have ordinance 2019-17, and this is an ordinance establishing the Affordable Housing District AH in block 125, lot 14. This is up for a public hearing as well. Ask for a motion to go into public.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, this is a lot that is at the intersection of Clay and Rancocas. And it's behind that, for those folks that are long-term residents, this is the former abrasive alloy site. It's been studied for a number of years for the potential contaminants, and we have, through the use of grants, been able to have these studies done over the years. We have 2 developers that are taking a look at that site. This would be a 100% affordable development, and this particular site is kind of tucked into into residential area. So, anyone have any questions on this particular ordinance? This is ordinance 2019-17. Yes, sir.
Charlie Mitchell, 1 South Bridgeburg Street. How will that impact the number of us that live around there? Helen Bennett at 7 Clay Street, Izzy Rizzo at 2 Rancocas, Jane Crothers at 3 South Bridgeburg, and myself at 1 South Bridgeburg. We all live along Rancocas. Right. So how will that impact us?
Well, I don't know exactly, but you're going to have a lot more new neighbors.
That's not a problem. We like people.
No, well, there you go.
Hopefully we
again,
get some to join the fire department.
See, I like how you're thinking positively. Frankly, none of the developments were, again, I've said it before, were anything that we asked for. These were sites that were selected. There are very limited sites left. There is a site, there's a 10-acre property on Hartford Road. So the folks in Ashley Crossing, which it's right next to, would scream here that, why would you pick that site? Why would you pick, there are no, as far as we're concerned, there's no sites that were attractive. We didn't go out looking for any of these homes. They were brought about because of the lawsuit.
I understand, and most of you guys know me.
Sure do.
I was a mailman there, I'm a firefighter, so 30-something years. And when they were doing all these tests down there, I went down, I talked to them guys. Okay, the place is not polluted, but it has, the only thing it does have is nickel. Any EPA things that you did, nickel's not a hazardous material. But that's what they found down here, mostly nickel. A lot of it is wetlands.
Right. So they're exploring that as we speak. And, if it becomes, our plan going forward to the court is to use this particular site. If for any reason, as we move down that road, that this site is not able to be used for this, we have to find another site. And, and that's going to be wherever that's going to be. We're looking at this. This is, it's tough to find these things and do these things when there's a virtual gun around.
Okay, now, as you say, if it's chosen as this site, what will happen? I mean, from what I understand as nightmares, that you have to widen the street.
I don't know.
That would all be done in the planning stage.
We don't know, if the site is going to be deemed acceptable site to handle the number of units that it is. We don't know what the plans would look like if that was done, what would be necessary from the street perspective. That this is a big futuristic plan that had to be negotiated, which we did, or else we would be opened up to any builder's remedy suits that came down.
Okay. Have any of you guys, have you ever been there? Have you seen First Valley, 10 Rancocas?
Yep.
It's ugly.
Well, it's ugly right now. I'm sure they're going to change it, but I agree. It is not.
Would you deem, if you're a developer, would any, blow your mind?
They will remediate the site and start.
Would it really be worth it?
I don't know. That's up to them. They're a private organization.
You've seen it.
It's not, fortunately, the township's not doing any of this development.
We have been receiving some grants to do remediation down there.
Say again?
We have been receiving some grants to do a little bit of remediation down there already. So, but like I said, I don't think it's decided about that, whether or not it's going to be used or not. So.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have a question about this ordinance, and this ordinance off only? Over here, we have, yes,
Jamie Roberts at 12 Center Street.
ma'am. Jamie.
Okay, a few questions. The cleanup, I have an article from June of 2013 that states that they were going to try to clean up and build their bin. The governing body has determined that there has been or is suspects that there have been a discharge of hazardous substances or a hazardous waste on the property. So you are aware of that. And then I see an article just from March that says something about a $98,000 grant from the State Department to clean that area up.
So, is that, Jeff, can you give us some background on that grant?
We received that grant, and that grant's in the works, and that's to identify the items that need to be cleaned up. This is about the third phase of grants and cleanups. There's a number of steps that we have to take with, and we
So
work
that's
with
just
the.
to assess the property, that's not even actually
Right now,
cleaning it up.
assessing the property.
Okay, $98,000 just to assess the property.
Correct.
Mike, is there any plans yet for this building?
No.
No, so can you tell me where the driveways, the entrances would be?
I don't have any idea.
Because the letter that I got said that the front of the units would be on Rank Hocus. Rank Hocus is not wide enough really for two-way traffic.
Is it? It's, so, I think what they're saying in the public papers, they just want we could provide. So, where Rancocas meets Clay,
Yes.
that somewhere in there would be the entrance
Okay.
to that particular area.
So-
Here.
Would you know now if there's a chance of any other driveways, any other way?
We don't know. But it is, you know, again, it's a site that is probably years from being remediated and then a plan being presented. When that happens, they'll have to come to the planning board and present a plan and, you know, and all the studies that go along with that. You'll have a chance to speak to that.
Okay, so the residents will get
However,
notification
anybody
closer
200
to...
feet from the property will be noticed for all of those hearings with the planning board.
Okay.
And they'll come with the big, well, by then we'll have the new screen. They'll have the plans on there, you'll be able to ask questions.
That raises another question. 200 feet. My house, if you, I don't know if you know that little area at all. Do you know where Mr. May's house is?
Not sure what
You know, where I'm across the street. I don't know how am I 200 feet from construction?
where, I don't know where you are. exactly.
So if the firehouse is here, my house is the corner of Cleveland and Center.
Cleveland and Center.
But all the homes on Rancocas got no notification. So how am I 200 feet? But those homes
The
are not.
property goes back to, it's a radius from the corners of the property.
Okay.
So you, let's say the southwest corner
Uh-huh.
is within 200 feet of your house.
So to elaborate, you're not necessarily 200 feet from construction, you're 200 feet from the lot.
Okay.
So it's not
Property
necessarily
line.
one and the same.
Okay, that, I just didn't understand, because
Yeah.
I had gone door to door to discuss this with the neighbors, and quite a few of them that are right there on Rancocas, right behind the firehouse, got no notification.
But it's possible that, well, I'm sure that they were not within the 200 feet. It's from the property line, so Jamie draws this, I don't know how Jamie, this is Jamie that tells you.
Okay.
The 200 dollars comes from the tax assessment.
It comes from the tax assessor as to where the 200 feet, the properties that are within the 200 feet would be.
All right, and another, and I'm sorry, I don't understand this, but why must there be market value homes built in addition to COAH homes?
Well, that's the typical way that let me just say this, that in this property, it'll be all affordable.
No, I
Okay.
understand that.
So the developers tell us, and pretty much the rule of thumb is that you don't make any money with affordable housing. That the only way these developers that do the 100% affordable make money is that they get all kinds of subsidies from the state, and I guess the federal government, you know, this Alan, if you know, but they in essence take advantage of grants and various other ways. They use the affordable housing as a way to facilitate getting these grants. That's where they make their money. But for any other developer, the affordable homes are not profitable as the market value homes are profitable.
But if Delran is being sued to accommodate these low-income houses, if we were just to build those units, it would be a lot easier on the sewer, on the schools,
So
on everything
I could
else.
elaborate on
Yeah.
that. The way essentially the New Jersey Affordable Housing Act guidelines are written, in order to facilitate this process, to encourage developers to build, yes, they're essentially using the builder's lawsuit remedy lawsuit to attack the town, but their primary interest isn't to provide affordable housing, it's to pay the money. The affordable housing mechanism, unfortunately, is the means by which they do that. So their incentive is to build as many market rate units to maximize their profit. And the way that the inclusionary zoning is mandated by certain New Jersey Affordable Housing Act guidelines, if it's a rental, there's a certain ratio that you have to satisfy of market rate versus affordable, and if it's owned through deed, it's full ownership, market rate value, it's a different ratio. But essentially, that's how the whole system is incentivized.
I get that, but as a town, can't we fight that?
We did fight it.
I just don't understand, it would make more sense to just put in these low-income units. It would be a lot easier on
But no
our
one wants to
town.
put in just those low-income units because there's limited.
And ma'am, one of the policy decisions, again, this is a state statute that was written that influences these guidelines. One of the reason these statutes, can you hear me now?
Just use your outdoor voice.
I promise I'm not hiding.
Nah.
One of the reasons this system is implemented in such a fashion is because the guidelines require a set aside based on a percentage rate for ownership. It's 20% affordable versus the market rate. So they actually could find developers to provide this statutorily required affordable housing requirement.
Can you tell me, there are going to be apartments back there, correct? Not townhouses or condos? Because they're going to have a clubhouse, they're going to have a laundry facility. So that's not going to be townhouses or condos.
It's just all inclusionary. Do we have, is there any specific, I'm just referring to the PowerPoint that we did, so I can find things without digging. There's 65 units that are going to be, could you look through this, see if it designates? In the meantime, I want to take the opportunity, just so that folks understand, I mentioned briefly when we started that this is not Section 8 housing, this is not subsidized housing. So just to give you some perspective, for a moderate income home to qualify, you have to make $57,664 if it's a two-person household or less. If it's parents with 2 kids, it's $72,080 with that. So these are folks that are, teachers, police officers, emergency personnel, other members. It's not, it's not subsidized housing. It's not negative things. It's just folks either that are young on their way up, or that have retired. Some of their retirement. All the homes at Stellwag that are affordable are age restricted. So these are folks that are on a pension, a modest pension. Apologize for it being so cold in here.
So cold.
I'm freezing myself. But
And just to answer your earlier question, it's not rentals. That's not the way I'm perceiving it.
Not rentals, okay. Just my concern, my property value of the soon, people they don't mind living next to townhouses, but I don't think they want to live right across the street from apartment buildings. That was my concern. I'm afraid.
It's not apartment building.
So,
Not.
It's an actually, there's multi-family dwelling townhouses, stacking townhouses, which will be multiple buildings.
In that area?
Yeah.
so this, again, multi-family dwellings, townhouses, stacked townhouses, doesn't mention rentals or apartment.
Okay, all right. And then the only other question, and I guess this could be resolved with maybe a different traffic pattern, but the traffic light to make a left from Bridgeboro onto Cleveland,
Right.
as if you're trying to get to the firehouse. You're allowed to make a left there, but I can't tell you how many times I've almost been rear-ended or honked at, or I had a neighbor who had a police officer pull her over because he thought that was an illegal left turn, and it's not. How is that gonna work when you have people from 65 units making that same left turn?
Right.
That's not gonna work.
In planning, they could look at that that area where you're talking about, I'm
Yeah.
familiar with it, and they'll reevaluate, I'm sure,
Okay.
and they'll have to make the modifications that are necessary.
Okay.
So that'll be at the planning board.
Again, so from, we are at the high level perspective, we had to settle this suit, it's been settled with this plan. And, you know, the courts are saying, tell us your progress, that's why these have to be approved, because if we went to court in September and said, we didn't do the ordinances yet, then they would remove our protection, and it would be the Wild West over here for building. So that's what we're doing. A lot of this stuff, you know, when we had the meeting in July on the 22nd, people said, well, how can you move forward without knowing this? It's impossible to know all the nuance that's happening. But these are good things. You know, I would encourage you to come to the planning board. You know, the mayor's a member of the planning board. I'm council's liaison to the planning board. These kind of intelligent, thoughtful questions are the ones that need to be addressed. And that's where we can say to the applicant, look, we need to address this. You're going to be building, we need to accommodate this additional traffic in some, you know, realistic manner. But
Sorry, one more thing about your cleanup. Do you know when the state's gonna come out and start cleaning up? You have no idea. And if it's bad enough, it could potentially just not happen at all, possibly.
I would say that it might be cost prohibitive to do that. You know, there are any number of things that could stop that from happening in that site. That would mean that we would have to go and find another site in town. There are very few sites left. And that's where, frankly, that's how crazy it became with this negotiation. Because, you know, would try to jam everything in. I
Just to paint another broad picture in terms of your concerns as to environmental remediation, nobody will be able to build there until it's remediated.
Yeah.
So if it isn't addressed by the township or state agency, the burden would be on the private developer to remediate as a condition of any approval, because you can't build residential housing on toxic.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, sir. Pat, will you let this gentleman come up, and then we'll go to Pat, and then we have another question here. Again, this is for the abrasive alloy site only. Say that again, sir.
Carl May, 13 Center Street. I have a couple of questions. Are all the units that we are putting in Delran's responsibility? None of them are any other municipalities' responsibility?
No.
Right?
No, they're all Delran.
I hear some scuttlebutt into, this will extend Cleveland Avenue back into the property. If it is, we're gonna take my driveway and drive. But where you have 25 feet frontage, I hear, I'm gonna wind up with 10. And that street goes in. Have I heard scuttlebutt?
Scuttlebutt, rumors, there's been absolutely no plan developed. So no, that whoever said that was making things up.
I apologize.
No, it's okay.
My hearing, tonight I got about 40% of the words.
Okay.
I apologize.
That's okay.
when I heard that, I was wondering how you was gonna do it. I
So
hope
it-
there are smarter heads around.
So the entrance, as we know it right now, is going to be where Rancocas meets Clay, not Cleveland. So right now, the entrance, as we understand it, there's no plan yet, but that's where it was intended to be, the front of the property.
So when the plans are finalized, you'll get a look?
You'll get a notice, same way you got tonight, and you can come to the planning board, and they'll have their plans on display, so that everybody, including residents, will be able to see them.
And you'll be able to provide input.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, sir. Pat?
Pat Pomerantz, 21 Alden Avenue. Hi. You said something tonight that kind of, a little light on. You said that you chose the site for the builder. A builder didn't come in and say, for Allen, didn't come in and say, we want to build here. You said we need to fulfill this obligation, and since the township owns that property, you said, okay, we're going to let you build there.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
Is that, Jeff, when this was all being discussed, was that something that, we had talked about a number of sites. I don't remember exactly how that went.
I'm referring to what you said.
I understand.
Yeah, it was one of the last sites that they were identifying vacant properties that had not been developed.
Right.
This was one of the ones.
So when we talked about the sites that were possible, there were other sites that were discussed, but this one was one that together, they said, well, we'd be interested in looking at that, and we said, okay, we own that site.
Ma'am, to the extent Council President says we, a lot of times you have to take it into context. You need to look in the context of the overall negotiation, so everything has to be approved on. If the site is potentially selected as an option by the governing body, it's negotiated by the developers or parties to the lawsuit. If they're a shared housing center, then ultimately it has to be approved by the court. So when there's no we, isn't just the governing body doing something on its own.
It's a good point. So when we were negotiating, and it was me with all of the attorneys that were representing council and the government, but it was also the court-appointed special master and the attorneys from the interveners, that it was kind of a back and forth. Here's some sites, we like this one, we don't like this one. Well, what about this? And we, as a collective, settled on some of these locations, and we negotiated down. There's always multiple sides to certain specific numbers. That's how we came to this agreement. Remember that there were 3 or 4 people coming in wanting to do things. The special master had to make sure the court was appointed. I knew that I had to come back to council with the best numbers we could possibly get. So there was, in any negotiation here in real estate, that you get to the point where you come to some middle ground, usually that nobody's happy, and that's usually, in my mind, when you have the best deal. If either everybody's happy or nobody's happy.
So explain something to me, if you would. So we're assigned 387, was it units, portals?
We're assigned.
Or we're told that's how we have to build and whatever.
Well, we
however you
agreed.
want.
We
Doesn't matter.
negotiated
That's the
down to
number.
a number. Right.
Okay, and then the court said you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G lots available to build on.
No, this
Who
was
said-
just.
Who identified those?
So, at Chester Avenue, the group called Chester Avenue came to us saying, we have a tentative agreement with the Diocese of Trenton to build on this site. The other interveners said, we have a tentative agreement to build on the Home Depot site, and Stellwagen, or we were already down the road, we had an agreement with Stellwagen, and then they got brought into the suit. And then this one developer that we needed these additional units to satisfy the numbers that we had negotiated, this was the 100% affordable developer, came in and said, are there any sites that that are that are in play that township owns, that are in need of remediation. I mean, there was so much discussed in all of these meetings. It was hours and hours and hours. Every 2 weeks, we were meeting with them with, again, the court said, you gotta get this, you gotta get this done. And so
do we own any other properties in town that are not on that registry, the Green Acres? That's the only land that we own?
No, that's the only land that we own.
That can be sold?
Right.
Okay. So now, I know where I live, and I wanted to put an addition on my house. You couldn't go more than 25 feet high because of the neighborhood. And I see that you're allowing them to go as high as 45 feet. There's not, that's what it says, a max of 45 feet high.
In the agreement.
In your ordinance.
In the zone.
Well, in the ordinance that you're passing.
Right.
There's not a house out there, well, maybe there's one, that reaches 25 feet. And all the others are much lower. That's going to stick out like a sore thumb.
It's typically 2-story units, 3-story.
Well, they're 3-story, you're giving approval for 3.
Right.
But maximum 45 feet, that's much higher than anything else around there. It's probably higher than the firehouse.
So nobody at this dais, we didn't say, Gary, find us a place to put a 6-story home and let's just build it for the fun. This is court mandated, constitutionally mandated, right? They have a right to bear arms, right? This is constitutionally mandated, right? None of us here came up with this law. It's written into the Constitution, but the courts read it into the Constitution, right? So they say you need X amount of homes. We have to figure out how to put that many homes in. And there's, I'm sure Alan can explain this, how many other towns are doing this. Every town in New Jersey is under the same obligation we are, having these same meetings with everybody else. And Fair Share Housing sued 300 different municipalities. So just, I completely agree with you. I think everybody here, it's not going to look great.
But do we not have any authority whatsoever to put any sort of building restrictions?
We do, there is some.
Then why did we allow 45 feet high
Because
in that area? And the other areas, they're, you know, that would be fine on Route 130 or...
Ultimately, we have to get to a certain amount of units. Like, you can't build, we don't have a lot of land to go around. That's we don't want all these units, but we have to somehow get them in for the court, for the law. So if you can't build wide, we have to build up. Now, listen, no one here wants it any more than anybody else in the audience. I want to explain that to everybody, that nobody here, we heard the concerns earlier, you should vote this down because we don't know anything about it. Unfortunately, this is a law written by the legislator and the courts are enforcing it. There's nothing here we can do. We can vote no, then the courts are going to come down and slam units down.
Did we attempt to contact anyone else in town who has land that would sell that those units could have gone on? Or because we own that, you said, well, that takes that off of our plate, we don't ever have to worry about it.
I don't have any recollection of reaching out to people and saying, hey, you want to sell some land so that we can put affordable units?
But we could have.
Sorry?
We could have.
I would assume that we could have. It was not part of the negotiation. We were negotiating, frankly, and I've used the expression before, with the gun to our head to get it done. And saying, I don't believe that we could have included in the plan, and we're going to go look for somebody who might be willing to sell us a piece of property that we can build these affordable units on. We said, look, we own this property, you know, if it can be remediated, frankly, if they can remediate it, wouldn't be a bad thing, as opposed to us doing it.
Okay.
So I mean, I hear you. Is it possible? Sure, anything's possible. Was it something that was plausible in the time frame that we had and under the pressures that we had? I don't think so.
Okay. I don't want to, never mind. So who's going to be responsible for the road situation? Will the builder have to build those roads? Because the roads there now, there's no way you're going to let 120 cars can go in and out that area. No way on God's green earth.
So, you know, again, that hasn't been negotiated yet. There isn't even a developer assigned to that project. It is a plan, like all plans, that is designed to settle this lawsuit.
Okay,
So
let
the
me ask you
potential
this.
is there.
Okay.
But if I can answer that question, that's a question reserved for the planning. This is a zoning ordinance
I understand.
that allows a certain density, certain setbacks. The developer has not submitted it, we don't even have it, we
I
haven't even
understand.
identified the developer. And
Well,
just
let me
to
ask
say
you
that's a
this.
planning board question.
If and when they come up with their plan, and the developer will not pay for the roads, will we have to pay for the roads?
We, you know, Pat, you're on planning board as well. So we will work with our professionals and with the attorney for the planning board and use all the leverage we can to do this. All right, if you're asking me to predict the future, I can't do
No, I'm
that.
giving you hypotheticals.
We can't deal in hypothetical. We have enough non-hypothetical to deal with all
Well,
this.
I understand that, but, you know, considering the people that live back there,
I
it's a
understand.
major concern to them.
I get
You know, if you're going, roads have to
Did I
be
just
wide,
speak of your
properties
planning-
are going to
your
have
planning
to be,
board member, right?
excuse me,
But just to, you're a planning board member, correct?
I am.
So if and when the application comes before you, you can advise the planning board solicitor whether that, the road improvement, to the extent it is a legitimate land use concern for the town, you made a condition of approval of development. So this is something you should very likely discuss with your.
Probably will.
With the
When
planning
it
board.
gets that far.
Right, but no, you asked what if.
Yes.
That is something that could potentially be made a condition of approval. We don't know until you as the planning board see that application. Just to go back to your question.
Okay. So if, again, when we get to that, and I know you don't want to go into babies, but when it comes to the planning board, and all these people who live back in that area, and they show up and they say, well, in order to widen this road, you're going to have to take 10 feet of my property, and 10 feet of my property, and, you know, all these different things are going to happen back there. Can we deny it?
That's a good question for the planning board solicitor. We don't know, that again, Pat, you know, you're going to take
Council
copy of this.
President, I would advise you against answering that question.
So I'm just going to say, all of that is your supposition. You know, suppose this happened. You know, suppose they.
Well, if they sell, they're
There's so
definitely going to
many
have to sell those
supposes
roads.
that
There's no suppose about
we
it.
can't act based on supposition. We have to act based on the negotiated agreement within the law. You see, this is the plan.
Well, I would have thought, though, that since you have all those other restrictions, that road restriction would also have to be part of that.
When we get to the planning board, I'm sure that will be discussed. You know, we have an engineer that's an engineer that serves as the planner. You know they're gonna say, well, for this, we need this and this and this, and that's when it will be discussed.
Okay. Do we have any idea when we're going to get results from the testing?
Which testing?
The testing on the ground to say,
Jeff,
if
where
it's
are we
hazardous, what's
with
going to be
the
done?
contamination?
It's just getting started. I would think by year end. But again, we have preliminary information. I mean, we do have a good idea of what's back there from previous studies. What they're really looking to see is not just what's been, but how far they've kind of permeated through the ground.
Sure.
Is what they're trying to determine by fissure, so we can see exactly how much is involved.
Right.
The left, Joe.
Okay,
Thank you, Pat.
thank you.
Is anyone else for Mr. Gucci and then Sharon? Hi, Mr. Gucci, how are you?
Listen, I have a question. I know on the low income, some of the townships sell the product, sell the option, right? You know, the township has Delran, Portland.
This would be REC.
You can't do that anymore.
You can't do that any longer. We did that, that was done in prior councils, and again, the question, for those folks who could hear, you used to be able to sell your obligation to another town and say, look, we'll pay you this if you'll build this many units. We have some of those units in Burlington.
We sold some into Burlington City back in the early 2000s, I think 37 units.
Right, so we have 37 units that we paid Burlington City to build there, but you're not allowed to do that. They changed the law. So we have none in this plan, we're not, it's illegal now. Thank you. No, we have Sharon over here. Trying to keep the taking.
Karen Coriel, 7 Marshall Drive. I just have a question regarding the wildlife impact. I have noticed that since this undeveloped property of Stellwag, that we've seen an upsurgence of a lot of wildlife migrating into the Hartford Road, Bridgeboro area, and all the way down into Ashley Crossing. Possums, fox, deer, looking for a new locale. I'm wondering if there is a study, a DEP intervention that is addressing this, not only because of the Stellwag property, but you have 4 undeveloped properties that are going to interrupt the wildlife. They have to migrate somewhere. I'm just wondering if that has been taken into consideration, if there is a study, and who's responsible for that study.
I don't know that we have a study on wildlife. Is there an obligation to do that legally in this situation, Alan? I don't.
Are we talking about the zoning amendment at this?
No, we're talking about.
Are we talking about the eventual application?
Right now, we're affordable housing only over at Abrasive Alloy, so when that disturbs that area, are we under an obligation to provide a wildlife impact study, or would the developer be?
I'm not aware of any requirements.
Should I go to the state and ask for them to study these 4 areas that are undeveloped regarding this? There's a lot of roadkill since the Stellwag property has been broken down to their land, and a lot of migration, and unfortunately a lot of roadkill on the wildlife. That's just one property. But when we're talking the impact of, especially now, abrasive alloy, which has been vacant and undisturbed for so many years, I'm sure that there's a lot of wildlife there that is going to be impacted. I certainly think that although a minor consideration, that it should be addressed in some way, because the impact to the overflow of these animals are have to go somewhere.
Right. And fortunately, that area for abrasive alloys, which is the ordinance that we're discussing right now, it backs up to a ton of open space that's already preserved. So I think, personally, this is not based on any study or any engineering background, but personally, just looking at where it is, seems like any disturbance of wildlife would have plenty of opportunity to migrate to other open spaces in that area. As far as the other developments, when we get to the public portion, you can ask the question again about the other developments, but at this point, there's no plan, as far as I'm aware, to do any study on wildlife impact.
Ma'am, again, I would keep that question in mind if and when the application comes before the planning board. It's not uncommon for any grant to be conditioned upon compliance with any third-party agency approved, such as the Department of Environmental Protection. So to the extent you have concerns, I'll present with that.
I've been in touch with the DEP, and they have no study or no planned study for our area.
So they haven't presented any concerns for the site question?
And my next question is regarding open space and what provisions Delran...
Can you just keep it quiet, please, in the audience, so we can all hear?
My next question is regarding the open space and what provisions and governance there is for Delran to maintain open space.
In general?
In general. And do we have any available property or locations within Delran that would be designated for that purpose?
So we've looked at a number of properties, especially, as this started to happen. We've talked to some property owners that were selling. Much of that is, when we acquire land, is typically discussed in closed session because we're negotiating with potential seller. And it's certainly something that we've talked about frequently, and both in a meeting and one-on-one with other council people. I know that in my discussions individually with them, they have high interest in trying to, we're at the point now where there's very little left. It'd be great to preserve the rest of it. And that's something that's manageable, but like everything else, it costs money to do that. And nobody's going to say, hey, here's 20 acres for you.
But if there's a government mandate in place for a certain ratio of open space, then we don't really have a say in it, do we?
Is there a government mandate for a certain ratio of open space?
All counties and municipalities have an open space criteria.
Do you are required to pursue green acres as much as possible, but specific criteria that's been assigned to Delran, I'm not aware of one, but to the extent, ma'am, you are interested in a list of properties identified and preserved as green acres that are not to be developed, the township can provide you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I should note also, that not relative to your question, but Alan not only works for the firm that is, am I right to tell you?
Sure.
So he's also a Delran resident, so it's not something that he's just here because he's getting paid to be here. He's a Delran resident who happens to work for the firm and has stepped up and helped us, and he's got an interest in this too because he's one of our neighbors. So everyone here except Jamie, sorry Jamie, lives in Delran. So everything that impacts you impacts us in the exact same way. Is there any other questions about this ordinance and this ordinance only? We do. Okay, you're next, and this gentleman over here.
Yeah, okay, go back to Charlie.
Charlie, all right.
Okay. I have a question. The gentleman sitting next to the left of the mayor. Are you doing the environmental impact station or?
No, I don't do the environmental impact. It's usually done by the engineer.
Okay.
So Jeff is our township administrator. He is the full-time person, day-to-day, that oversees all the department heads along with the mayor.
Is there somebody doing that now? Is that being done?
That would be done, again, when an application is submitted to the planning board. And usually they would provide it, and planning board would require an environmental impact statement, and if they do, which I would assume they would, then the developer would have to submit.
Okay. Because, like I said before, there have been plants like Nassau Construction, there have been people who wanted to build on that property before. And there have been environmental studies done on that place. What they found was places laden with nickel, which is not a hazardous material. They didn't find no chrome, or anything like chromium or anything like that, but they didn't know where to look.
Right, so again, we just got the grant a while back. They're gonna study that and the penetration of whatever contaminants may or may not be there. I don't know, granted, they may have come up with preliminary studies. Now we're at the in-depth level because they have to look at it from a remediation standpoint.
All right. You have the grant.
Yes.
Third phase.
Okay, so when will the studies begin? Do you know
The study
that
is
now?
just beginning.
Just beginning.
No, they've been doing it.
So we've done two prior studies, phase 1 and phase 2. This is the beginning of phase 3.
So I
This
can
is-
walk down the street talking to them.
You can do whatever you'd like to do.
No.
Just be careful.
I worked at that place for 5 years.
Yeah.
Make sure you wash your hands out.
And be very careful, because they're not just back there. Seriously.
I know where the chrome is, I know,
Well, you work there, so you know.
I know.
Yep. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
The new hangar, 23 frac. I've complained about this many times. The properties on frac, now they are.
Wait. We're talking about abrasive alloy only,
No.
that site only.
We're not talking about my problem?
No, sir. We're talking about.
When?
We haven't even gotten through the agenda yet.
Okay.
All right. Yes, sir. And the gentleman in the back will be next. Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Marty Eckert. I live at 104 Mulberry Street. I know a lot of these things that we're asking we talk about as planning, more for, road improvements and entrance access and buffers. There's a quick question I have relating to credits. Is it still true that you need to have like a transit access or a certain proximity of whether it's bus or like the river line in order to get the credits to have affordable housing?
So I may answer that. That's more on the private applicant side, but the way essentially the grant process works, it's highly competitive for these developers. That's my understanding. Speaking of my understanding, it's very competitive, and the proximity and the availability of public transportation, such as a bus stop or public train station, that increases their points in terms of how
Right.
competitive they are. But if there aren't any guarantees, and it's not necessarily a prerequisite for them to attain funding for these projects.
I mean, I'm sure that, obviously, we look at the neighborhood, we see the width of the streets, the proximity to 130, the entrance and exits from 130 on Bridgeboro Road, the overall traffic on Bridgeboro, you know, is pretty excessive at this point. Even, you know, I've reached out to the mayor in the past, living on Mulberry, the former NAS property is an owner now. Tons of, you know, landscaping vehicles. There's a chicken farm back there. I was all, who knows what's going on back there? There's a lot going on there, to be honest with you. I've talked to construction, but reaching out to the mayor for a matter of public safety, which again, this would all relate to any of these entrance roads. I had reached out to the mayor. He directed me to the construction office, to the chief of police, and there are yellow lines along the roadway, you know, so cars aren't parked at the corners from a safety standpoint, which is great, and I do appreciate it very much. We're going to fall into that with this neighborhood. So I would strongly encourage anybody here to definitely come to planning, because even like the NAS property, in hindsight, it would have been great for the township to acquire that. That would have been a hell of a buffer to add park, trees, to take some of the impact off the residents that back up to that L. Unfortunately, who knows, maybe they'll try to buy that property. It would be great. It would be a lot less traffic on our dead-end street. But that's what I would say. I would say that this is a foregone conclusion in terms of where we are tonight with this. The planning phase is really where, you know, this is for the betterment of the community, and that's why you're all here. And that's what I would encourage. Developers come in, if they work with the township and they follow restrictions, you know, any of these properties that we are talking about for development, the overall impact would be less if they have strict structure of what they can do and what they can't do. You know, buffers, there's wildlife, there's road improvements, there's beautiful homes along the creek that, yeah, the overall property values are going to be affected. So if it's approved, however, made difficult for development, and they can do whatever they want, maybe it's not an attractive site. You know, I don't know. That's kind of the next phase of this, but that's the overall concern. It's a small neighborhood. We don't have much distance off of 130 as it is. Bridgeboro Road, the traffic, like you cannot turn left. My wife yells at me all the time, why go up to Bridgeboro or to Mulberry to turn left on the Bridgeboro instead of just going to the light? But it's a tight little area. And
No question.
you know, I find it very hard for a developer to come in and think it's a slam dunk. If they bought the whole neighborhood out and they cleared everything, it'd be one thing. But I think, like I said, I think the planning side of things is really where the neighborhood impact can be realized. And that's where we really need you guys to get back for us and have restrictions that it's for the betterment of the community, it's for the safety. Even if it's developed, I mean, those people aren't going to want to sit at a traffic light for a half hour.
Correct.
So, but thank you for answering about the transit side of things. But
And I would just encourage the governing body, every person here present tonight should make themselves present that night and express any land use concerns that they may have.
so thank you very much.
Thank you. There's a gentleman in the back. Are you still interested, sir? Over this way? Over this way. All right.
Harry Fox, 15 Clay Street. I had a lot of notes here, but I think you answered 90% of it. So, and you did a good job. Thank you. First question I had, and you may have said that at some point, who actually was involved in the negotiations?
Me.
You were the sole person on council, or
I was the sole person on council. You know, full disclosure, Ken had to recuse himself because of a conflict, so it was left on my lap, and along with 3 or 4 attorneys. There were tons of attorneys at the table. A couple of engineers, the attorneys representing the interveners, and the attorney who is the special master.
Just to clarify, Council President didn't take any action on his own without full approval from the entire governing, the majority of the governing body. I would play the vote.
Understood. And I understand why you chose this area, or how this area was picked for 100% affordable housing as opposed to the inclusionary. I understand why you did that. And how did you come up with 65 units? Or was the 65 units determined and then you said we're not going to fit 65 units?
It's in the negotiation, we were juggling numbers to reach a number that was agreeable to all four parties that were involved. And as that balance was shifting back and forth, could that number, frankly, if Stellwag was able to get out of the suit, they couldn't. But if they had, and there were 20 more units, then they would have been dispersed in the others. We had to get to the number, and that number was in flux the whole time. I'm not telling you anything. As any negotiation, anybody that's been involved in any negotiation down to buying a car, it's always, well, if you throw in this, we'll do that. If we can get, but my goal was to get the lowest number possible. And their goal was to get the highest number possible. So that's how we did it.
Understood. So you came up with, you negotiated it out, so you needed 65 units. And then you just picked a spot that you think you might be able to fit 65 units.
That was a location, that was one that we owned, that was one that the folks had interest in, and that was negotiated to be there. If this is in the plan, so keep an eye on me, Alan. So this was the plan as it was negotiated. If after we have our court appearance in September and the plan goes through, then we'll continue with that plan. If something should change, and for any reason that site is not acceptable or not workable or viable, then we'd have to find another place to put 65 units. This is not.
I would say that the first compliance period, Council President, we just have to demonstrate that we've taken a step in the compliance direction, which is the adoption of these ordinances. And there's another compliance period at that point in time where it's eventually going to start to look like, well, okay, where are we with this development process? Have developers step forward, have applications been submitted? How many units have we built out? How many are occupied? That's all spelled out in the agreement. Sorry.
And I do agree, and I don't think it was viable for developers to build on this property, so we're all residents.
You're right about that.
I have experience.
It's going to cost them too much.
Yeah, it's probably not. But the only, what kind of concerned me was you mentioned that there were two developers that were interested in this property.
Correct.
Are they developers or are they?
They are 100% affordable organizations that build 100% affordable. They know that, frankly, as you know, the way they make their money is by being able to acquire the grants and the incentives from outside agencies in order to do that. There's two that are looking at the property. They may both say, let's try to find something else, or they may turn their back, and then we got to go figure out a way to get 65 more units somewhere else from somebody else. It's, again, we don't want to. We have to satisfy this obligation.
Just to demonstrate mechanically that how arduous this process is, we would just pick another site, copy and paste the settlement agreement. We would have to amend the settlement agreement, have all the parties, including the Fair Share Housing Association and the court, sign off on it. Basically, in one sense, we're not start from scratch, but definitely take a step back.
With regard to the environmental issues, the demo of the property, is the town going to demo that?
Hopefully that we can have a developer do that demo, or the remediation company that's going to ultimately do the remediation there. My guess is if they're going to remediate the contaminants, they're going to have to take the buildings off first in order to do that, so that if they clean the soil and then knock down the building and further contaminate, they have to do it twice.
I saw some demolition contractors out there a while back looking at it to give prices. That's why I was wondering if the town was looking into.
Jeff, can you help with?
Yeah, we had a couple of demolition companies that had an interest in possibly looking at the salvage value of the buildings, the metals, and in exchange for doing a demolition. But this point in time, we don't have anybody that's made a proposal to us.
Okay, so we weren't big on spending money, counting money to demo, you're trying to make a deal.
Yeah, that's pretty much been, we've been trying to do this as best we could with spending the least amount of money. And that was just one avenue we pursued.
And generally speaking, that demo is part of the planning board process, and applicants are generally expected to provide demolition services before any construction.
Well, the town owns this property, so it's township property.
Right,
Well,
but
they
it
built it,
it
it-
would be, right, but if it goes forward, it would be sold.
Yeah. And if that line is, not really what these are planning, but that's,
But
just to set things a little bit straight, because again, I don't believe this is going to be built, but I'm just going to get things straight. This is all affordable housing. Now, affordable housing is very low, and moderate income. Do you know the percentages of each that people on this property?
I don't know that that's spelled out in the agreement, what percentage would be very low or moderate?
So that criteria is generally spelled out by the state compliance period, by whichever management company. That they have defined criteria for state guidelines as to who qualifies, whether any portable vouchers are permitted, what their incomes are, what background check requirements are, depending on if it's rental or purchase.
I believe there are requirements for certain percentage of them will be very low income.
Right.
Which is okay, but just, you mentioned policemen, teachers, a very low income has to be $18,000 or less income per year.
If it is a single person.
Correct, yep.
Right.
Yep. Just, if these 65 units were being built, you're looking at from what the departments are, that for single, double, triple bedrooms, you're gonna have 149 bedrooms in that unit. So it's not 65 units, it's 149 bedrooms. You're gonna have almost 200 cars per day traffic generated, according to all the sites.
No, that.
Well,
All
if 65
this
built.
is your extrapolation of 60, from 65.
Right.
It's all, frankly, it's hypothetical. We
Oh,
don't
absolutely.
know what it's going to be.
No, I'm saying,
So-
max, if it was all built out to 65 units, you know, that's
At a
what we're looking
ratio
at.
of bedrooms that
Yep.
you've arbitrarily decided upon.
Right.
Not arbitrarily?
Now, there's percentages written on how many have to be single, how many got double, and how many three bedrooms.
Okay.
But, and you extrapolate all that, of course.
So in full disclosure, Harry's an engineer, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
So just.
so I'm not an
looking at-
engineer, Harry, so go ahead.
Understood. Just looking at those, you talk about traffic, and there will be a lot of traffic. The sewer plant comment, Mr. Burrell, you mentioned how the one tank.
Don't quote me specifically, tank may not be the correct term, I'm not.
No, you're right.
Talking about the
You're right.
weirs.
But what happens is, what happens, to maintain the plant, you have to shut down one of the tanks. So you can clean it, and the other tanks have to go at full capacity, one that's shut down. So you are correct, it has capacity if you use all the tanks. But you'll never be able to clean out one of the tanks. So the sewer plant would have to be upgraded, just, in my opinion, I'm not,
Okay.
And just to make it clear, the ordinance says townhouses, et cetera.
We're still on abrasive alloys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we talking that, so it's not going to be apartments?
By what it states.
Is that what the attorney says?
That's what I'm saying right now, but I'm gonna look into it further.
It doesn't spell out that they're going to be rental units as the others do, some others do.
But you also mentioned apartments, and it doesn't say apartments per se, but.
That's just my concern is,
Right.
It was stated that it wouldn't, legally stated that it wouldn't be apartments. I just want to clarify if that's your opinion or if that's. Yeah.
I think it is. I don't
You know,
think apartments are permitted with this
it
strategy.
could be rentals. I mean,
But it says that the whole complex has to be owned by a single owner.
Right, so rather than speculate,
Where do you see
find
that in
that
the
out.
ordinance?
Fine.
Where do you see that in the ordinance?
The one owner?
Yes.
355-136, area one requirement, number one.
So it looks like that rental, that maybe we.
So
we
what that
spoken
means
from
is
the
the
ordinance.
developer will purchase the tract for development purposes, and then the process by way of approval state might subdivide that.
Alan, in some of in the plan does mention the possibility of family rental. So let's go back to that and say that it's not in the ordinance that it says that, which is what we're discussing here. In the overall plan, it could be rentals. So it doesn't say that specifically, but it does say that in the big thick book.
For the site in question?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm just for those folks who are here, I'm rethinking the big giant iced tea that I had before we came here. So in about 9, and in about 5 minutes, we're going to take a 5-minute bio break for everybody to do whatever they have to do, including myself. This is what we have. So, listen, we'll figure this out. There's so many moving parts here. And so rental is a possibility. You know, in the ordinance, doesn't specifically state rental, doesn't specifically say it's not rental. So let's adjust our.
On this question, we'll issue a formal legal opinion.
We'll have the attorneys review it and figure out what it is. It's one of many pieces to this puzzle.
Okay, that's one. How would you, get that formal opinion?
You can, Harry, just reach out to Jeff, and once we get the attorneys to make it, we'll send it over to you.
Okay. Fair enough. That's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any more questions on this particular ordinance? Because what we'll do is we'll go through what we have to go through, and then. Yeah, all right, so how do we go about doing that? We don't normally do that. We just need to take a 5-minute break. Everybody who needs to
take a vote.
All right, so I need to, what do we call that? Break, a recess? All right, good. I get enough lawyers here I can ask. So I need a motion to take a 5-minute recess. No, you can't make the motion out there. So moved. So moved. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, see you back in 5 minutes.